Thank you very much, Program Director, for affording me an opportunity. I'm not quite sure whether only KwaZulu-Natal has two names, a name and a surname. I think also for Western Cape is Western Cape, Eastern Cape. Honorable Minister of Employment and Labor, Honorable Nomakosazana Meth, the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Shalabalala, eThekwini Metro, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Zandile Mieni, President of Congress of Trade Unions, Mr. Zingiswa Losi, a representative from L20, Mr. Diho Gonzalez Lopez, a representative from B20, Sanisiwe Chanchis, and representative of member states, a representative of invited states, a representative of Troika, Director General of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Mkhize, the Acting Director General of the Department of Employment and Labor, Special Advisor to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Sabelo Gwala, Heads of Departments and Deputy Director Generals, International Multilateral Organizations, International Delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the government and the people of KwaZulu-Natal, I wish to welcome all the delegates to the second employment working group on living and working in an unequal world, ensuring a decent work and decent lives taking place here in Umhlanga. We are gathered here to take forward the struggle of centuries against the discrimination of women, particularly at workplace. This today remains the battle that is at the center of the total emancipation of women globally. While we come to this gathering with differentiated records of achievement in ending wage and discrimination, I wish to say that all of us are equally guilty of such discrimination wherever it may occur. It was the great Martin Luther King Jr. who famously said that, and I quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," close quote. The existence of discrimination in any part of our world against women means that the struggle is not over for all of us, because this is a threat to our justice. One of the papers to this gathering in the latest World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap report, which states that South African women receive between 23% and 35% less than men for the same work done. This discrepancy is to be found in many countries across the G20 and the world. The document also lists inequitable public procurement spent between women-owned and managed business compared to those of men globally. These are experiences that we share in KwaZulu-Natal and which are yet to be addressed fully. I have no doubt that the discussion of equality between men and women in the workplace that forms part of this week will consolidate the achievement of the Brisbane Act goal of promoting equal opportunities and treatment at work for all. This gathering also seeks to tackle horizontal and vertical segregation between men and women and to ensure decent work in the care economy. Together, under the G20, we will take the struggle further in the battle of overcoming the barriers to equality between men and women during their lifetime. We want to achieve inclusive growth. However, we cannot achieve inclusive growth without incorporating women and critical sections of our population as critical beneficiaries of economic growth, and importantly, as agents of their own economic liberation. As developing countries and as sub-international states like South Africa and KwaZulu-Natal, this engagement gives us an opportunity to rise to higher standards of labor force participation globally. While our own constitution in South Africa guarantees equality between men and women, there remains a lag between policy and practice in the workplace and society. We are yet to see the total elimination of wage discrimination, especially outside the public sector. In KwaZulu-Natal, the public service may be about 50% female, with salaries based on equal scales, yet work remains to ensure that senior management as service fully reflects our gender and demographics. Furthermore, in your engagement, you have identified emerging trends, including the rapid digital transformation and the green transition as presenting both opportunities and new risks for advancing equality. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not need to remind you that our task is not only to identify instances of gender discrimination, but to institutionalize measures of redress. This is what this working group must in fact do. We therefore support the call for comprehensive and targeted policy interventions. Amongst these is the strengthening of labor market institutions and promoting equal pay for work of equal value. It is to ensure decent working conditions in the care economy and promote equal opportunities and treatment for all in education and employment across sector. As in race among the key determining factors that drive progress in eliminating wage gaps is increasing and broadening the skills base, including the mathematics, science, and technology, to enable the best amongst females to emerge to the top. History is our side because wherever South Africa had its back against the wall or faced formidable challenges, it rose to the challenge. We will confront the challenges of our time, drawing inspiration from the resilience and unity that has long defined South Africa's history. Today in 2025, the baton passes to us on the G20 as we grapple with persistence, inequality, unemployment, and increasingly complex international trade. We are called to answer how we will write the next chapter. Here in KwaZulu-Natal, a province shaped by both struggle and triumph, we understand the cost of division and the power of collaboration. Our challenges are steep: youth unemployment, spatial inequality, and climate vulnerability demand bold collective action. Yet our history reminds us that solidarity, local and global, can move mountains. This working group is a call to action for one and all to put their shoulder to the wheel of progress. Let us harness the spirit of those who came before us. Let us craft policies that lift the marginalized, economies that empower workers, and international alliances that prioritize justice and prosperity. Just as the world stood with us in 1975 and 1995, let us now extend that solidarity to workers around the world, recognizing that inequality anywhere diminishes humanity everywhere. May I therefore welcome you. I wish you the very best in your deliberations. May your engagement over the next few days help us continue to inspire greater hope amongst the people of KwaZulu-Natal, the people of South Africa, the people in every member state, and indeed the globe. To our international visitors, please do enjoy your stay here in KwaZulu-Natal. May I also invite you to spend more time after this conference, and I hope that you will find the time to return to your shores again. In closing, I leave you with Madiba's Timeline's wisdom. I quote, "It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it, close quote. Let us honor our past by building a future where no one is left behind. We welcome you to KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Premier. Now that you've been welcomed, in our culture, again, we say you can then take your jackets off, not literally, but let's just feel freer now that you've been welcomed. I picked up two key things from the address by the Premier: inequality, discrimination, wage disparities. Isn't it amazing that these things also jump into the animal kingdom? If you look behind us, you see what Africa is known for, and South Africa in particular, is the big five. So amongst the big five, we've got the lion and the elephant. The lions are known to be the ultimate predators. They are known for their mane, the male lions. Addressed by the Premier: inequality, discrimination, make sure that everyone eats, is the females. They do all the hunting and guess who eats first as soon as a kill has been made. However, when you move into the elephant kingdom, you find that elephants normally are led by a family matriarch, which is a female. So I'm going to call the Minister of Employment and Labor, Minister Nombakazana Meth, to give us an address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, DDG Moelo, and good morning to you. Good morning to your co-chairperson, who is a real chairperson of this session, the acting DG, Miss Jackie Molisani. The Honorable Deputy Minister, Miss Judith Nemadzinga Chabalala, the Honorable Premier of the KZN Province, Mr. Thamsanqa Ntuli, the Deputy Executive Mayor of eThekwini, Ms. Zandile Myeni, Director General of the Premier's government, Dr. Nonhlanhla Mkhize, our key partners from the B20 and L20, both the President and the CEO, the eThekwini City Manager, Honorable Delegates, Mr. Thamsanqa Ntuli. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Sanibonani. Today we gather in one of the most beautiful coastal cities of South Africa, eThekwini, which lies on the Indian Ocean side of the country. Hence it has a subtropical warm weather all year round, with beautiful beaches and diverse marine life attracting tourists from all over the world, and let alone its fame as an international surfing destination. I'm hopeful that our guests will find time to enjoy the culture and hospitality of this vibrant city. It is with great honor that I address you today as we continue establishing the foundational building blocks necessary to advance our collective vision, one that is rooted in social justice, fairness, and in eliminating global inequalities in labor markets. We convened in Gqeberha in February for the first Employment Working Group meeting, and once again, we are here today to continue the good work. Let me extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to you all on behalf of our beloved country. Our home is your home. During this second G20 Employment Working Group meeting, we'll focus on two critical priorities: that is addressing inequality and the declining labor income share, which have profound implications for living standards and advancing gender equality in the workforce. The growing erosion of labor's share of national income poses a significant threat to broader economic resilience and inclusivity goals by widening wealth disparities, weakening the social fabric, and limiting upward mobility. Addressing this trend is crucial for global progress. In parallel, achieving true gender equality in the workforce is not just a matter of social justice, but a fundamental driver of economic prosperity. By closing the gender gap in employment and wages, we can unlock untapped potential, foster innovation, and build a more equitable and sustainable labor market for all. We find ourselves at a critical juncture where the global landscape is marked by increasing disparities, threatening the fundamental principles upon which just and dignified societies are built. Millions of workers worldwide remain mired in precarious employment conditions, receiving stagnant wages and experiencing shrinking opportunities for social mobility. Policies and initiatives that aim to alleviate poverty and economic despair and counter resistance from those who prioritize narrow economic interests over workers' inherent dignity and rights. However, we must be clear that economic growth must not be evaluated solely through GDP metrics, trade balances, or other numerical indicators. While such measures are important, they cannot be the only barometers of success. Genuine progress must be evident in our collective commitment to uplift the most vulnerable of our society. The real test of our achievements is ensuring that economic expansion leads to substantive social justice, employment figures correspond to quality jobs with decent pay, and that work provides financial stability, dignity, fulfillment, and security. At the heart of our deliberations is the immutable principle that labor is not a commodity. Workers are not disposable inputs in an economic calculus, but they are human beings with dreams, responsibilities, and the fundamental right to a decent life. A zero-sum international economic system prioritizing profit over people is neither sustainable nor ethical. It is therefore imperative that we reject transactional approaches that undermine fairness, equity, and dignity. As a G20 president, South Africa remains steadfast in upholding the values of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. These are not abstract ideals or rhetorical flourishes. They serve as the foundation upon which our policies, governance, structures, and international engagements are built. We categorically reject any notion that human suffering can be reduced to a mere footnote in pursuing political expediency or economic dominance. Honorable delegates, a key priority for the Employment Working Group is ensuring that discussions about youth employment and women's economic empowerment remain at the forefront of global labor agenda. In this regard, the Nelson Mandela Bay Goal on youth employment is a bold and transformative commitment to reducing global youth unemployment by at least 5% by 2030. This is not merely an employment target. It represents an investment in the future of our societies. We must actively create quality jobs, foster skills development, and champion youth-led innovation to ensure young people have a place in the evolving labor market. Similarly, we remain steadfast in our advocacy for the Brisbane to eThekwini target on reducing the gap between men and women in labor force participation. Workplace equality is a moral imperative and an economic and social necessity. With both the Antalya and Brisbane targets set to expire this year, we have a crucial opportunity to reaffirm and expand our commitments to closing disparities. We must ensure that women, particularly those in marginalized and vulnerable sectors, are fully integrated into the workforce and provided the same opportunities for advancement as their male counterparts. We recognize that these proposals will not receive universal consensus. Some argue that the government's role in addressing labor market inequities should be minimal. However, we assert that the cost of inaction far exceeds the cost of intervention. When governments fail to act, inequality deepens, social unrest festers, and generations are condemned to economic stagnation and despair. We refuse to accept such an outcome. In this regard, we must also express our disillusionment with the drastic developments occurring on the trade front. These shifts threaten to become the primary drivers of economic stagnation and job losses, particularly in developing nations. These changes will erode economic resilience and dismantle employment opportunities for millions. This means that like-minded G20 countries must rise to the occasion and forge resilient labor market policies that protect jobs, safeguard economic stability, and ensure that our economies remain viable despite mounting global uncertainties. South Africa stands firm and shall not waver in pursuing fairness, inclusion, and social justice. We continue to advocate for decent work, robust labor protections, and equitable economic opportunities for all. We resist any effort, whether domestic or international, that seeks to undermine our sovereignty, our people's dignity, and the fundamental rights of workers. As we embark on this session, let us remain mindful that our deliberations have profound real-world implications. The decisions we make today will shape the future of work for millions of people across the globe. Our efforts must not be confined to policy frameworks alone, but must translate into tangible, measurable improvements in people's lives. To achieve this, we must adopt a multifaceted approach that integrates social protection, universal labor rights, and sustainable economic policies. No country, worker, or community should be left behind. We must fortify international cooperation and ensure that our policies foster shared prosperity rather than exacerbate disparities. With the looming global economic slowdown due to fracturing multilateralism and resurging nationalisms, our collaboration is critical to protecting different sectors, industries, and jobs. All this is happening while we try to make sense of simultaneous rapid transformations brought about by technological advancements, climate change, global market shifts, and ever-changing geopolitical dynamics, which are reshaping the world of work at an unprecedented pace. While these changes introduce new opportunities, they also pose significant risks, particularly for those in informal and vulnerable employment sectors. As policymakers, we are responsible for ensuring these shifts promote inclusivity rather than deepen existing inequalities. To this end, we must implement comprehensive reskilling and upskilling initiatives that equip workers with competencies needed for the future jobs. Moreover, we must reinforce social safety nets to protect those at risk of displacement and ensure no one is left behind. Finally, let us not forget that the path towards inclusive and decent work is not solitary. It requires collective action at the national, regional, and global levels. Through this collaboration, we can genuinely dismantle the structures of inequality and build a fair, just, and prosperous future for all. As we move closer to preparing the ministerial declaration, it would be amiss of us not to thank all G20 countries for their support. We all recognize the invited countries, workers, and employers' dedication to enriching the discussions. We further appreciate international organizations for their technical expertise and for holding our hands throughout as we navigate the complex global labor market landscape. We proudly recognize the participation of academics from UKZN who responded enthusiastically to our invitation and will contribute to this meeting with their presentations. We gratefully acknowledge the empowerment of women working groups' deliberations and Sherpa's insights on the task force for inclusive economic growth, industrialization, employment, and reduced inequality. We further recognize the synergistic collaboration between the respective chairs of these working groups, namely the Department of Employment and Labor and the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, in shaping the discussions on men-women equality in the workforce, priority 2, notably their co-hosted roundtable. I wish this working group successful deliberations over the coming days, and you are most welcome. I thank you.
Unless we've got tangible outcomes to measure success factors, economic growth and social justice will remain a dream that is unachievable. Thank you, Minister Meth, for that address. One of the things that is going to make us stronger as the G20 community is to develop a thick skin against all challenges like the rhino and the buffalo. They're very thick-skinned animals. On that score, I'd like to invite the Troika. I'm going to invite Brazil to take the floor, just for the Federative Republic of Brazil to take the floor for the opening remarks, and they're going to be followed by the United States of America. Right where you're seated. Over to you.
Honored hosts, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to present our opening remarks at this second G20 Employment Working Group, meeting under the South African presidency. As a member of the Troika, Brazil reaffirms its full support for the set priorities for 2025, which place inclusion, equality, and social protection at the center of our discussions. The themes of inclusive growth and youth employment, gender equality in the workforce, tackling inequality, and ensuring social security in the digital age are crucial for shaping a labor market that is fair, resilient, and prepared for the challenges of the future. In this sense, Brazil strongly supports the three task forces aimed for under the South African presidency: industrialization, inequality and employment, food security, and artificial intelligence. These issues are fundamental to addressing contemporary challenges and play a role in fostering fairer socio-economic development across our nations. In the second meeting of the working group, we are particularly encouraged by the focus on reducing inequalities and promoting gender equality, two pillars that are deeply interconnected. The discussions ahead will allow us to reflect on how employment and social protection systems can be strengthened to ensure a more just distribution of income and better living standards for all. In this regard, we believe that informality is a critical challenge in promoting inclusive growth and reducing income inequalities. Brazil has been implementing strategies to tackle this issue, including strengthening labor inspections, expanding access to social protection, and encouraging the formalization of self-employed workers and small entrepreneurs. We believe that the combination of active labor market policies with social protection programs can be a powerful tool to ensure more equitable working conditions. With regard to gender equality in Brazil, a noteworthy historic achievement was the enactment of the Equal Pay for Men and Women law in 2023. Although Brazilian labor law has mandated equal pay since 1943, enforcement remains a challenge, and women continue to encounter systemic barriers in the labor market. In this way, the Equal Pay Law addresses these gaps by requiring companies to identify and correct pay disparities, thereby promoting a more inclusive work environment. This initiative aims not only to eliminate the gender pay gap, but also to end broader structural inequalities in the workplace. With respect to the initiatives led by the South African presidency, Brazil expresses its full support to the Nelson Mandela Bay G20 target on youth employment. Its goals: reducing NEET rates, thank you so much, strengthening youth skills and entrepreneurship, and boosting the effectiveness of youth employment strategies, are aligned with our own national efforts. We believe that investing in youth is not only a social imperative, but also a strategic path to sustainable development. Brazil remains committed to working in close cooperation with all G20 members, social partners, and international organizations to foster policies that generate quality jobs, promote gender equity, and strengthen social protection systems. We look forward to engaging in productive discussions and identifying concrete actions that will drive our shared agenda forward. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much. It's wonderful to join you all here today in such a wonderful and beautiful city. We really appreciate the warm welcome. Our particular thanks go out to Mr. Thamsanqa Ka, Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm very sorry, Premier, for mispronouncing that, but I'll practice this week. Minister Met, Ms. Musani, we'll practice that this week too. And Sipho Siyabonga and the whole team at the Department of Employment and Labor, as well as G20 member, country delegates, social partners, international organizations, and invited guests. We had very productive discussions during our first employment working group meeting in February on youth employment and challenges and opportunities they face in the labor market, as well as the integration of digital technologies to enhance social security access and services. We also look forward to useful discussions this week, both on wages and labor income share, and on addressing gaps in the labor market between men and women, to learn more about what other G20 member countries and invited guests are doing and how we can continue to find synergies and best work together to advance common goals. In the United States, we are focused on expanding efforts to work with business and labor to support good-paying jobs and grow our economy. We are reinvesting in our workforce and honing in on concrete strategies that promote economic growth and benefit workers and our economy. We appreciate South Africa including a focus on women's economic empowerment in this week's discussions. The United States strongly supports promoting empowerment of women and girls, including advancing global women's economic empowerment. This has been an important and productive area of collaboration since launching the Brisbane Goal under Australia's presidency. And we welcome that taking into account the Brisbane Goal is set to expire in 2025. We appreciate South Africa's focus on looking at options for continuing to keep a strong focus on empowering women and creating prosperous economies within the G20 Employment Working Group and more broadly. To that end, we also look forward to learning more and discussing options for continuing our work in this area and possible linkages with the G20 Women's Working Group and other relevant tracks. Again, many thanks to our hosts, and we look forward to a productive week here in Durban. In 2025, we appreciate South Africa's focus on
In Nelson Mandela Bay, the Premier is Noma Thamsanqa, not Noma Thamsanqa, Thamsanqa.
To learning more and discussing options for continuing our work in this area.
The challenges that we face certainly are more common than they are different. And we thank you very much, the Troika, for those words of encouragement. At this point in time, I'm going to invite our social partners representing the L20. I'm going to invite Ms. Zingiswa Losi. She is going to be followed by a representative of the B20, Mr. Kulegani Mate. In that order, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. The Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Ubabuntuli Mpemba, Her Excellency Minister Meth, the Deputy Ministers and the Diplomatic Corps, members of Troika, our social partners, the L20 and B20, esteemed guests, our international guests, especially those that are experiencing the vibrant tapestry of South Africa for the first time. It is indeed with humility that I stand before you, entrusted to amplify the voice of global labor movement, a force that remains the most expansive and democratic social current on the planet. The International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC, represents over 200 million workers across 169 countries. While we are here representing the interest of workers globally and ensure their voices resonate in the G20's deliberations, this employment working group convened on the African soil offers a unique opportunity. We are compelled to shine a spotlight on the urgent challenges that are faced by workers across the continent and the global south. Tony Atkinson, in his book Inequality, reminds us that inequality is not inevitable, but rather it is a policy choice. And he wrote, and I want to quote when he said, "The distribution of wealth is not a fixed outcome, but a reflection of our values and policies," close quote. That gives us hope that the decision we are here to take can and must reduce inequality. Program Director, inequality is multifaceted. It manifests economic disparities where a few control the most resources, and in the deep social inequalities that disadvantaged people based on race, gender, and age. Unequal access to healthcare, to education, and to opportunity perpetuates these injustices, limiting social mobility and trapping generations in poverty. The world of work holds real potential to tackle these root causes if the right policies are put in place, and so we must collectively dismantle the structural drivers of inequality, which are patriarchy, discrimination, unemployment, poverty wages, weak social protection, and the repression of trade unions. First, we must condemn the many countries that still fail to recognize the fundamental labor rights. The ITUC Global Rights Index 2025 that will be launched this month of April documents alarming levels of workers' rights violation. And Program Director, indeed, this is unacceptable. We are sending, therefore, a clear message as workers that workers' rights must be respected, that trade unions must be free to organize, they must be free to defend members, to bargain collectively, and to strike without fear. And what we cannot do and should not, Program Director, is to sit in polite conversations at the G20 and ignore the onslaught workers are facing out there. And therefore, we must indeed confront this head on. And in order for us to address inequality in the workplace and improve labor's share of income, we must reduce wage gaps and disparities in workforce participation, especially between men and women. And in order for us to do this, this demands strong labor market institutions. It demands equal pay for work of equal value. It demands non-discrimination and expanded social protection. And therefore, we need public services that are accessible and universal. And minimum wages and collective bargaining are not an option, but they are essential. Program Director, pay transparency is also critical, not between men and women, but between executives and frontline workers. We must therefore push for objective job appraisals and care policies that support a fair distribution of caregiving responsibilities, upskilling and reskilling, especially of women in STEM and leadership, must be part of our toolbox to address horizontal and vertical segregation. But of course, wages alone are not enough. We must therefore grow equality employment. We must adjust minimum wages regularly in order for it to keep pace with inflation. And we must strengthen collective bargaining institutions. A living wage must be a basic guarantee and not a privilege. And a core challenge in emerging G20 countries is the high level of informality. Transition workers from informal to formal employment is essential to reducing inequality, and this requires expanding legal protection. It requires formalizing enterprises and enforcing compliance. And formalization brings improved wages, safer working conditions, and access to social protection for millions of workers. And beyond the labor market, fiscal policy must also be a tool for justice. Progressive taxation and well-designed social transfers are essential to redistributing wealth and be able to shield households from shocks. And these mechanisms must be enhanced across the G20, particularly with inequality that remains extremely high. And social protection is especially crucial for women and vulnerable groups who often face career interruption due to caregiving roles. And therefore, Program Director, as we respond to the climate crisis, we cannot ignore the intersection between inequality and environmental justice. And so, a just transition must be central to our climate agenda. What we cannot allow is climate solutions that sacrifice workers and communities. Without proper planning, we indeed risk worsening poverty and inequality, further eroding democratic stability. So the G20 Employment Working Group must prioritize a just transition that protects jobs, that strengthen the states, and invest in public goods and deliver decent and sustainable livelihoods. And Task Force 1 must ensure that workers and communities are at the center of industrialization and growth strategies, not casualties. And ultimately, reducing inequality demands comprehensive and context-specific policies. And these must reflect the realities of each country and work in combination, ensuring fairer labor markets, defending workers' rights, and using redistribution tools effectively. Our South African experience offers a living example of what is possible through social dialogue. And I want to share that through NEDLAC, we have managed to negotiate progressive labor laws co-created emergencies measures during COVID-19, and we secured above inflation wages through bargaining councils. And I must say, Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed social dialogue, when it is genuine, it is a powerful driver of shared progress. But it must be more than a checkbox. It must be meaningful. Engagements must shape the outcomes. Such discussions indeed are not easy. They are hard, but we must debate, we must motivate, and through our engagements, we must be able to find each other. Our policy choices, Program Director, must be conscious and they must be deliberate, and only then can we ensure policy is able to reduce inequality and its brutal impact. And only then can we create a better world, ensuring that the perspectives of all stakeholders are considered, and only then can we build a fairer world. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges are immense and failure is not an option. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, to be made to speak after Zingiswa amounts to an occupational hazard, and I am laying a complaint. The Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Kodide, Honorable Minister of Employment and Labor, Ms. Makhosazana Meth, Deputy Ministers, leadership of eThekwini Metro, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege for me to stand before this gathering today as part of this second employment working group held under the South African G20 presidency. The theme, living and working in an unequal world, ensuring decent work and decent lives, resonates profoundly with the challenges confronting the global economy. This theme encapsulates one of the pressing challenges of leadership of our time, the imperative of creating a fairer, more equal world where workers are justly compensated and empowered to lead decent lives. This is especially pertinent for us in South Africa, a nation that is marked by significant income inequalities compared to many other jurisdictions. As we proudly host and hold the G20 presidency, Business Unity South Africa, the organization I lead, the largest and premier business organization representing the largest share of the South African economy, also takes the role of presiding over the B20, which is the business engagement forum of the G20. And so earlier this year, on the 24th and 25th of February, we hosted a highly successful launch of the B20 in Cape Town. And this marked the commencement of a very busy year as business leaders from across G20 nations, along with business representatives from invited nations, will work tirelessly to develop policy recommendations for submission to the G20 presidency later this year. While closely aligned with the overarching G20 theme, the business community has adopted the theme inclusive growth and prosperity through global cooperation. This theme underscores a vital truth that sustainable development cannot be realized without inclusive growth and shared prosperity. It also highlights that global cooperation is essential in our pursuit of these goals. To facilitate policy discussions and deliberations amongst B20 business leaders, we have established 8 task forces which focus on the following areas. 1, trade and investment. 2, employment and education. 3, energy mix just transition. 4, digital transformation. 5, finance and infrastructure. 6, integrity and compliance. 7, food systems, sustainable food systems and agriculture. And 8, industrial transformation and innovation. While some of these task forces align more closely with the focus of this working group on employment and growth, we believe that the interplay among these topics will enable business leaders to tackle the challenges of employment, decent work, and decent lives. Together, we aim to forge policy recommendations that reflect our commitment as business leaders and propel us towards a brighter future. As business leaders from the African continent in particular, committed to the growth and prosperity of our respective countries, we have a unique platform in the B20 and G20 from which to understand and define Africa's comparative advantages. It is imperative that we focus on targeted strategic initiatives in key areas such as trade and investment, education, and industrialization, which are vital levers for economic growth. Business has the expertise and networks necessary to shape global economic development. Furthermore, Africa and its enterprises embody resilience, creativity, and a profound understanding of our continent's strengths. Through adversity and challenges, Africa has always found ways to thrive. Our history is one of overcoming, adapting, and innovating. We achieve more with less, adeptly turning challenges into opportunities. Here in Africa, community and collaboration are our competitive advantages. We understand the power of partnership and the necessity of working together to achieve what may seem impossible working alone. Africa has much to offer the global community. 1, climate tech and industrialization. Africa's mineral wealth is crucial to the global energy transition, supplying 90% of cobalt, 60% of manganese, 70% of platinum, and 13% of copper. The second area is renewable energy potential. With vast renewable energy resources, including solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, Africa has the potential to generate over 1,000 gigawatts of clean energy, enhancing energy security across the entire continent. The third area is agriculture and food security. Boasting 60% of the world's untapped arable land, Africa could feed an additional 2 billion people if we address the challenges of infrastructure and logistics. And fourthly, the demographic dividend. By 2050, 1 in 4 people globally will be African, adding 800 million workers to the global workforce, provided we invest in skills, education, and global transformation. These strengths must be integrated into the global economic agenda, building on the work of the past 3 G20 presidencies from the Global South, those being Indonesia, India, Brazil, and now South Africa. We will focus on recommendations that emphasize the strategic actions, foster partnerships, and accelerate momentum of pressing priorities. But we cannot do this alone as business. And therefore, we invite policymakers, as you gathered here today, and experts to join us in developing pragmatic, outcomes-focused policy recommendations. Our objective is to convert potential into performance by setting specific targets, rigorously monitoring progress, and ensuring accountability at every level. Together, let us chart a more measurable path for ourselves and for others, striving for truly just and inclusive economic growth. Thank you very much. Pragmatic, outcomes-focused.
On the table, inactivity can never be an option. Thank you so much, social partners. I'm going to invite Mr. Sipho Ndebele to take us through a presentation.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Honorable Minister, Honorable Premier, the Deputy Ministers, esteemed delegates, colleagues and social partners. As we convene here, we are reminded of the immense responsibility that lies upon our shoulders, not only to advance the priorities we have set for ourselves, but also to ensure that our work aligns with the broader goals of fostering global stability, equity, and sustainable growth. My presentation is really to outline the critical issues that will guide our deliberations over the next 4 days. To ensure we build on the progress that we've made thus far, I will begin by providing a brief recap of the first EWG meeting, as this will serve as the essential bridge to discussions we will undertake in the days ahead. This second convening builds directly upon the foundational work initiated in February in Gqeberha. There, we engaged in discussions centered around 2 interconnected themes: fostering inclusive economic growth with a focus on addressing the pressing issues of youth employment and transforming social protection systems within the context of an increasing digitalized global economy. A key milestone from our February meeting was the launch of the G20 Social Policy Portal, a collaborative initiative between Brazil, the International Social Security Association, and the International Labour Organization. This platform, designed to facilitate cross-country policy learning, knowledge exchange, and innovation, will play an important role in improving and designing the implementation of social protection system worldwide. These initiatives, colleagues, underscores our collective recognition that the challenges we face cannot be solved in isolation, but instead require cooperation and collective efforts. As part of our ongoing efforts to understand and respond to evolving needs of youth in the labor market, we also conducted an in-depth stocktake of youth employment trends across G20 member states. With great concern, we note that those not in education, employment, or training, the NEET, their rates remain stubbornly high in many countries. Globally, young women face significantly higher NEET rates than young men due to deep-rooted structural barriers, including skills gap, unequal access to education, and limited labor market opportunities. This year also marks the conclusion of the Antalya Goal, adopted in 2015, which aimed to reduce NEET rates by 15% over a decade. Whilst we have seen some countries make significant strides, we must also acknowledge that many of the challenges we face, have remained unresolved. Skills mismatches, the prevalence of informal work, and exclusion from economic opportunities continue to limit the prospects of young people. In light of these continuing challenges, South Africa is honored and continues to propose the Nelson Mandela B20 Youth Employment Target for 2030, which aims to reduce the need rates by 5% by 2030. We will have a follow-up discussion to canvass more support and clarify all outstanding issues. Turning now to priority 2, men and women, which relates to gender equality in the workforce. We must reaffirm our unwavering commitment to closing the gender gap in the labor force participation. As many would recall, the 2014 Brisbane goal committed G20 members to reducing the gender labor force participation gap by 25% by 2025. While the goal has undoubtedly spurred significant policy action, progress has been slower than anticipated. We must redouble our commitment to women empowerment in the workplace and broader society. In line with our ongoing commitment to equality, South Africa proposes the Brisbane to eThekwini target on reducing the labor force participation gap between men and women. This goal seeks to extend the deadline for reducing the gender participation gap to 2035. We believe that this extension will deepen our efforts, reinforce national policy actions, and create a systemic change necessary to achieve gender parity in the workforce. We recognize that the road ahead is challenging, but it is a road we must travel together if we are to ensure that women have equal access to opportunities and fair wages. I will now touch on priority 3, the decline in labor income share. This matter requires our urgent and focused attention. The World Inequality Report highlights that the top 10% of the global population now receives more than 52% of the total income, while the bottom 50% receives only 8%. This stark income inequality signals a deepening fracture in the global economy. The decoupling of productivity growth from wage growth is a key driver of this inequality, with informal and non-wage employment further exacerbating the problem. Young workers in particular are disproportionately suffering, with informality rates among youth exceeding 85% in some member states. To address these challenges, the EWG will continue deliberations on strengthening wage-setting institutions, enhancing collective bargaining coverage, and extending social protection systems to cover informal and non-standard forms of work. We believe that these steps will ensure that all workers, especially youth and women, can share the economic prosperity they help to create. Before I conclude, Chair, I want to acknowledge the vital contributions of our working structures in G20 coordination, the Task Force 1 on Inclusive Economic Growth, Industrialization, Employment and Reduced Inequality, led by our Department of International Relations, the Employment of Women Working Group, led by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability. We have invited them to come and update our colleagues in the EWG on the work they are doing and the progress within their streams. Their work underscores the integrated and cross-cutting nature of our approach, which is essential for addressing the complex and interconnected challenges we face in the world of work. In a world marked by geopolitical uncertainty, demographic shifts, a rapid technological change, our ability to create inclusive, resilient, and equitable labor market is more critical than ever. As we enter the next phase of our discussions, we urge you all to approach our work with the collaborative spirit that has always characterized the G20. Together, we can and must build a future where no one is left behind, where every worker, every young person, and every woman has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. Lastly, Chair, I would like to make an important note regarding the format of this meeting. We want to inform our G20 member states and delegates that those who could not attend this meeting in person have received a private link to follow the proceedings. However, we will also want to clarify that they will not have an opportunity to speak during the session. They will just follow the developments. So this meeting remains an in-person meeting, and we believe that face-to-face engagement are crucial for the integrity of our discussion. Furthermore, arrangements have been made for a select group of presenters to address the meeting, ensuring we maintain a focused and substantive exchange. We also wish to assure all G20 countries that there will be no public streaming of the discussions. The deliberations between states remain closed in keeping with international practice and G20 agreed principles. This is to preserve the integrity of our engagement and ensure that the exchanges are candid and constructive. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ndebele. As I conclude, the only animal that I didn't refer to on the big five is the leopard. The leopard is known for its love for loftiness, solitariness, and the tree. For me, one lesson that you can learn from the leopard is that when you're up there, you tend to lose the pavement view and you develop a view that is broader when you look at what it is that is challenging you. So on that note, I just want to thank everyone very much and for just being a wonderful audience. I'm just going to hand over to the chairperson just to conclude this session. Thank you.